The sound of raindrops hitting the tent roof should have been relaxing. But there was something different about that Friday night in the Cascade Mountains of Washington State. Amanda Sterling watched her husband, Daniel, through the tent's opening, seeing him check the ropes for the 4th time in half an hour. His large, calloused hands, which she had always admired, trembled slightly as they adjusted each, not with obsessive precision. If you've ever had that gut feeling that something was about to completely change your life, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments what that moment was that changed everything for you. The family camping trip in the mountains had been Daniel's idea, a way to reconnect the family after months of intense work and routines that had pulled them apart. Amanda had been excited at the prospect of spending a long weekend in nature, far from cell phones, endless meetings, and Seattle's chaotic traffic. It was exactly what they needed to rekindle the intimacy that seemed to have been lost amid the responsibilities of adult life. "Are you nervous about something?" Amanda asked, stepping out of the tent and approaching her husband. Daniel, at 36, had always been meticulous and careful, traits that had attracted her when they met in college nearly a decade ago, but she had never seen him so restless during a camping trip, especially considering he had been a Boy Scout in his teens and knew the mountains like few others. "It's just the rain," he replied, but his brown eyes, which she always compared to the hot chocolate they drank on cold mornings, did not meet hers. The forecast said it would be something light, just a typical northwest drizzle, but this, he gestured toward the dark clouds gathering above their heads. "This looks like something much more serious." Amanda looked up at the sky and felt a shiver run down her spine. The clouds weren't just dark, they had an almost solid quality, as if made of molten lead. The wind blowing down from the mountains carried a strange smell, a mix of ozone and something she couldn't identify, but that made her feel uneasy. Across the small valley where they had set up camp, Amanda could see the orange glow of her sister Lisa's tent and her nephew Tyler's. The bright red tent stood out against the dark vegetation, and through the translucent canvas, shadows danced. Probably Tyler still awake, reading some adventure book with the flashlight he had insisted on bringing. "At least Tyler's having fun," Amanda commented, watching the moving silhouettes inside the tent. "When was the last time we saw him this excited?" At 9 years old, Tyler was a bundle of energy who had begged to come on this adventure. Since his parents' divorce 2 years earlier, he had become quieter, more introverted. Seeing his genuine excitement about the camping trip had warmed Amanda's heart. The boy had spent weeks researching wildlife, preparing lists of things to spot, and even practicing rope knots with YouTube tutorials. Daniel turned abruptly at the sound of the boy's name, his movement so sudden that Amanda instinctively stepped back. He's okay. Their tent is secure. Did Lisa check all the stakes?" "Of course it is," Amanda laughed, but there was something in the intensity of Daniel's concern that made her hesitate. "Lisa can be overprotective, but she knows how to take care of her own son. And you helped set up their tent yesterday afternoon yourself, remember?" In fact, Amanda remembered clearly the excessive dedication with which Daniel had pitched Lisa and Tyler's tent. He had spent almost 2 hours adjusting every detail, testing its resistance to rain and wind, positioning it in the most sheltered spot in the camp. At the time, Amanda had thought it touching to see her husband being so careful with his extended family. Now, watching his growing anxiety, she was beginning to wonder if there was something more behind that attention. "Daniel, what's going on with you?" she asked, studying his face in the dim lantern light. "Since we got here, you seem more worried about Tyler than about anything else. More worried than when it's just the two of us." Daniel looked away again, pretending to adjust a rope that was already perfectly taut. "I just want everyone to be safe. It's a big responsibility to bring a child to a place like this." "Tyler isn't our responsibility," Amanda said softly. "I mean, of course we care about him, but Lisa is here. She's his mother." Daniel's reaction was strange. He swallowed hard, and his hands clenched into fists for a moment before relaxing. "I know that. Of course I know." A thunderclap echoed through the mountains, distant but threatening. The sound reverberated through the giant pines surrounding them, creating a ghostly echo that seemed to come from all directions at once. Amanda felt the hairs on her arms stand up. "I think we should check on Lisa and Tyler," Daniel said suddenly, already moving toward the red tent. "Daniel, stop." Amanda grabbed his arm. "What's going on with you? You're acting as if Tyler were your son, or something." The words slipped out before Amanda could filter them, and she immediately regretted it. It was just a figure of speech, a way of illustrating how worried Daniel seemed. But when she saw the look on her husband's face, a mix of panic and guilt that lasted only a fraction of a second, before being masked, a cold sensation spread through her stomach. "Sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't mean that. It's just that you're so nervous." "It's fine," Daniel replied, but his voice sounded forced. "You're right. I'm being paranoid. It's just that. I don't know. Maybe it's the responsibility of organizing this whole trip. If something happens to anyone, I'll feel guilty." It was a logical explanation, and Amanda wanted to believe it. Daniel had always been the kind of person who took responsibility for others, who cared about the well-being of everyone around him. It was one of the qualities she admired most in him, but there was something about the way he had reacted to her joke about Tyler that continued to unsettle her. The rain began to intensify, turning from a light drizzle into thick, insistent drops. The sound against the tent's canvas grew louder, more urgent. Amanda decided not to press the issue, at least not at that moment. Married for 7 years, she knew the moments when Daniel preferred to remain silent, and she had learned to respect those spaces. "Let's go inside," she suggested. "Tomorrow we can take a hike if the weather improves." But as they prepared to sleep, Amanda couldn't ignore the tension hanging in the air. It wasn't just the approaching storm, there was something electric between them, something unspoken that made the small space of the tent feel almost claustrophobic. As they got ready for bed, Amanda watched Daniel discreetly. He was restless, fussing with things unnecessarily, organizing and reorganizing the backpack that was already perfectly packed. His hands trembled slightly, and she noticed he was checking his phone repeatedly, even knowing there was no signal in the area. "Are you waiting for an important call?" she asked. No, just habit, I guess." They lay side by side in their sleeping bags, but Amanda could feel that Daniel was awake, tense. She reached out and touched his shoulder. "Hey," she whispered. "It's okay. We're safe here." Daniel turned to her, and even in the darkness of the tent, Amanda could see the shine of his eyes. "I love you, Amanda. You know that, don't you?" The declaration came out of nowhere, charged with an intensity that surprised her. "Of course I know. I love you too. Why are you saying that now? I just wanted to make sure you know. No matter what happens, you need to know that I love you more than anything." There was something in Daniel's voice that made Amanda sit up in her sleeping bag. "Daniel, you're scaring me. What do you mean by no matter what happens?" "Nothing," he said quickly. "Sorry, I think the storm's just making me melancholic." But Amanda knew it wasn't just the storm. There was something Daniel wasn't saying, something eating away at him inside. She decided she would talk to him in the morning, when they were both calmer and daylight made everything seem less ominous. During the night, Amanda awoke to the deafening sound of water. The rain that had started as a gentle drizzle was now hammering the tent canvas with a fury that seemed supernatural. The wind howled through the trees, creating a sound that resembled distant screams. She reached out for Daniel, but found only the empty, still warm sleeping bag. "Daniel," she called, but her voice was completely swallowed by the roar of the storm. Amanda grabbed her flashlight and checked the time on her phone. 3:47 a.m. Where could Daniel be at that hour, in the middle of such a storm? She unzipped the tent carefully, trying to keep the rain out, and peeked outside. What she saw took her breath away. The landscape that had been a lush paradise during the day now looked apocalyptic. The giant trees swayed violently, some with branches snapping under the force of the wind. The small streams she had seen during the previous day's hike were now raging torrents, carrying branches, rocks, and debris down the mountain. The rain wasn't falling. It was pouring from the sky as if someone had opened the floodgates of a celestial dam. Amanda had never seen anything like it, not even during the harsh northwest winters. It was as if nature itself had gone mad. "Daniel," she shouted again, but the sound was immediately swallowed by the storm. Stepping out of the tent, Amanda was struck by icy gusts of wind and torrential rain that drenched her instantly. The force of the water was so intense she could barely keep her eyes open. Her clothes clung to her body, heavy and cold, and she began trembling uncontrollably. Looking toward Lisa and Tyler's tent, Amanda felt her heart stop. The red tent was there, but it looked as though it was fighting against the wind like a wounded animal, and there were no lights inside. "Lisa!" Amanda shouted, running toward her sister's tent and battling gusts of wind that tried to knock her down. With each step, her feet sank into the mud that had formed where solid ground had been. When she reached Lisa's tent, Amanda saw that the zipper was open, flapping wildly in the wind. She shined her flashlight inside and felt her blood run cold. The tent was empty. "Lisa, Tyler," she screamed until her voice was hoarse, but the wind carried her words into nothingness. Then she heard it through the roar of the storm, a human scream. Distant, desperate, coming from somewhere higher up the mountain. Amanda pointed her flashlight in the direction of the sound and saw something that froze her with terror. A section of the mountainside, about 200 meters above the camp, was moving. It wasn't the natural movement of trees in the wind, it was something much more sinister. The earth itself was shifting, sliding down the mountain like a massive wave of mud and rocks. And in the middle of that devastation, running desperately down the steep slope, she saw two figures, one larger, carrying a smaller one in his arms. "Daniel!" Amanda screamed with all the strength in her lungs, but her voice was lost in the deafening roar of the landslide that was gaining speed and power. What she saw next left her breathless and filled her with a terror she had never experienced before. Daniel was running down the unstable slope, carrying Tyler in his arms, but it wasn't just a run, it was a desperate fight against death. With each step, rocks and branches flew around them. Whole trees toppled like dominoes, some missing them by mere inches. Amanda watched in horror as Daniel stumbled and fell. For a terrible moment, she thought they were lost forever. But then she saw something that would be seared into her memory for the rest of her life. When Daniel fell, instead of letting go of Tyler to protect himself, he rolled in such a way that his own body cushioned the boy's fall. When Daniel got up, completely ignoring a cut on his forehead that was bleeding profusely, he didn't hesitate for a second. He picked Tyler up again and kept running, as if the boy were the most precious thing in the world. There was something in Daniel's fierce determination, in the desperate, almost animal way he protected Tyler, that didn't seem like just the concern of a loving uncle. It was something much deeper, much more visceral. It was the primal instinct of a father protecting his son. Amanda felt her legs go weak. The revelation struck her like lightning, not a logical certainty, but an intuitive understanding that came from deep within her soul. The way Daniel held Tyler, the way he risked everything to keep the boy safe, the absolute desperation in every move. It was like a father saving his own child. No, she whispered to herself, her words carried away by the wind. It can't be. But as she watched the scene unfold, other memories began fitting together like pieces of a macabre puzzle. Daniel's insistence that Tyler spend more time with them, the way his eyes lit up when the boy called him Uncle Daniel, the excessive attention he devoted to Tyler's well-being, the way he seemed to instinctively know what the boy liked, what made him laugh, what made him nervous. The landslide kept tearing down the mountain, taking centuries-old trees as if they were toothpicks. The mass of mud, rocks, and debris was at least 30 meters wide and moving with terrifying speed. The sound was deafening, a primal roar that seemed to come from the earth's very core. Amanda watched, her heart in her throat. As Daniel disappeared and reappeared among the destroyed vegetation, always with Tyler in his arms, always running like a man possessed by a sacred mission, there was no hesitation in his movements, no regard for his own safety. Every decision he made was calculated to keep Tyler safe, even if it meant putting himself in even greater danger. Other campers began to appear, stumbling out of their tents in panic. Screams echoed through the valley as entire families ran to higher ground. An elderly woman stumbled and fell, helped up by her husband. A young couple carried a small child, running toward the taller trees. But Amanda could only focus on one thing, the figure of her husband battling furious nature to save a boy who, she was beginning to suspect, was much more than a nephew. Why is he doing this? Amanda murmured to herself, her words swallowed by the chaos around her. Why is he risking everything? Then she saw Lisa. Her sister was running toward the landslide, screaming Tyler's name with a hysteria that tore at the heart. But when her eyes met Amanda's, there was something in her expression, something that looked very much like guilt and terror mixed together. Amanda, Lisa screamed, running toward her. Tyler's gone. He wasn't in the tent when I woke up. I know. Amanda screamed back, pointing to the slope where Daniel and Tyler were still fighting the landslide. Daniel's with him. Lisa followed Amanda's gaze, and when she saw the two figures on the mountain, she let out a sound that wasn't quite human, something between a scream of relief and a sob of despair. How did Daniel find him? Amanda asked. But even as the words left her mouth, she realized that wasn't the right question. The right question was, how had Daniel known where Tyler was? I don't know, Lisa replied, but her voice was strange, almost unrecognizable. Maybe Tyler went looking for him, looking for Daniel, in the middle of the night, during a storm? Amanda studied her sister's face, but Lisa avoided her gaze. The landslide began to slow, leaving behind a trail of destruction that had turned the green mountainside into a brown sea of mud and debris. Where once there had been a lush forest, now there was only a landscape of devastation that looked like it belonged to another planet. And somewhere in that chaos, Daniel and Tyler were fighting to survive. They made it, Lisa murmured suddenly, pointing to the base of the mountain. Look, down there, near those rocks. Amanda followed her sister's gaze and saw two figures moving slowly along the edge of the devastation. Daniel was still carrying Tyler, but now they were walking toward a safer area, away from the reach of possible new slides. Thank God, Amanda sighed, feeling her legs finally give out. She sat down in the cold mud, trembling not only from the cold but from the intensity of everything she had witnessed. But as she watched Daniel and Tyler slowly approach, struggling through the wreckage, one question kept hammering in her mind like a persistent headache. Why had Daniel risked everything? Why, in all the years she had known him, had she never seen him show this kind of fierce desperation to protect someone, not even her? The comparison came naturally, and with it a sharp pain in her chest. When Amanda had been in that car accident on Interstate 90 the previous year, Daniel had been concerned. Yes, he had gone to the hospital, cared for her during recovery, had been attentive and loving, but he hadn't shown the primal, almost animal urgency she had seen tonight. Tonight, Daniel had fought for Tyler, as if his own life depended on keeping the boy alive, as if he couldn't live knowing he had failed to protect him, as a father would protect his son. Amanda closed her eyes, trying to push away the thoughts forming in her mind. They were terrible suspicions, based only on observations and intuition. There was no real proof, no concrete evidence, only the growing sense that there were secrets in her family she had never imagined. When she opened her eyes again, Daniel and Tyler were closer. She could see that both were covered in mud, scratched, and clearly exhausted, but alive. Tyler seemed to be talking excitedly to Daniel, gesturing with his small hands as he recounted something about the adventure he had just lived. And Daniel was looking at Tyler with an expression Amanda had never seen before. It wasn't just relief or care. It was something much deeper. It was pure, unconditional, desperate love. It was the look of a father. If you're feeling the same tension as Amanda, leave in the comments what you think really happened that night. Do you think Daniel and Tyler met by chance? Or is there something deeper happening here? And don't forget to like this video. This story is only beginning to reveal its darkest secrets, and what comes next will leave you all speechless. 2 hours after the landslide, 23 survivors huddled in the Cascade Falls Community Center, a rustic wooden building that had become an improvised shelter. The smell of hot coffee and damp blankets dominated the air, mixed with the odor of mud and fear clinging to the skin of everyone who had survived the natural tragedy. Amanda was sitting on an uncomfortable plastic chair, watching Daniel from across the communal room. He was kneeling beside Tyler, checking every scratch on the boy's body with an obsessive attention that bordered on pathological. His large, calloused hands, the same hands she had seen hold Tyler against death just a few hours earlier, trembled slightly as he cleaned a superficial cut on the boy's arm. "Does it hurt here, champ?" Daniel whispered, gently touching a scrape on Tyler's knee. His voice was thick with an emotion Amanda had rarely heard, not just concern, but something that sounded almost like devotion. Tyler, still in shock but trying to be brave the way any 9-year-old boy would, shook his head with determination. "No, Uncle Daniel, not at all, and thank you for saving me. You were like a superhero, Uncle Daniel." The words echoed in Amanda's mind like a distorted echo in a deep cave. Why, suddenly, did those words sound so inappropriate, so false? Amanda watched the interaction between the two with new eyes. The way Daniel cupped Tyler's face in his hands while speaking to him. The way his eyes couldn't leave the boy, as if he constantly needed to check that Tyler was really there, really safe. The intensity of the relief in his expression, a relief that seemed disproportionate to the official uncle-nephew relationship they had. "Daniel." Amanda approached slowly, feeling as though she were walking across an emotional minefield. "You're hurt? Let me see that cut on your forehead." Daniel looked at her as if he had completely forgotten she existed. For one terrible moment, their eyes met, and Amanda saw something that made her instinctively recoil. It was fear, not the natural fear of someone who had just survived a disaster, but the deep, visceral fear of someone who knew secrets were about to surface. "I'm fine," he said quickly, looking away and turning his attention back to Tyler. "Tyler is what matters now. I need to make sure he doesn't have any internal injuries. No concussion." "Daniel," Amanda interrupted, her voice colder than she intended. "Tyler has a mother to take care of that. Lisa can take him to a doctor if necessary." The phrase hung in the air like an unspoken accusation. Daniel froze, his hands still on Tyler's shoulders, as if reluctant to let him go. "Of course," he muttered. "Of course, Lisa. Of course." Tyler looked between the two adults, confused, clearly sensing the tension but not understanding where it came from. "Aunt Amanda, are you mad at Uncle Daniel? He saved me. If it weren't for him, I would have. Don't think about that, sweetheart." Amanda forced a smile for the boy, but her eyes never left Daniel. "We're all just tired and nervous. Why don't you go play with the other kids over there?" Tyler hesitated, glancing between Daniel and Amanda with the sharp perception some children have for adult tension. "Can I stay with Uncle Daniel? He promised to tell me stories from when he was a kid." And the sentence hit Amanda like a punch to the stomach. "When did he promise you that, Tyler?" The boy blinked, confused. "This morning, when he came to get me from the tent. He said that after all this was over, we'd sit by the lake, and he'd tell me stories about when he was my age." Amanda felt the world tilt slightly around her. "Daniel came to get you from the tent this morning, unhung." Tyler confirmed innocently. "I woke up because it was raining really hard, and then Uncle Daniel came into my tent and said he had to take me somewhere safe because the mountain was dangerous." The silence that followed was deafening. Amanda looked at Daniel, who had gone as pale as the white wall behind him. His hands were visibly trembling now, and he seemed to be struggling to find words. "Lisa?" Amanda called, her voice sounding strangely calm to her own ears. "Can you come here, please?" Across the room, Lisa was speaking softly with one of the Red Cross volunteers who had arrived to help the survivors. When she heard her name, she turned. Amanda saw again that strange expression she had noticed during the tragedy, a mixture of relief, guilt, and something that looked very much like terror. Lisa approached with hesitant steps, like someone walking toward their own judgment. "What is it, Amanda?" "Tyler is telling us how Daniel found him this morning," Amanda said slowly, watching every micro-expression on her sister's face. "Apparently Daniel went to your tent and told Tyler he needed to take him somewhere safe." Lisa opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her eyes darted quickly between Daniel and Amanda, like a cornered animal searching for an escape route. "Is that true, Lisa?" Amanda pressed. "Did Daniel come to your tent during the night?" Lisa stammered. "I was sleeping. The storm was so strong that—" "Mom," Tyler interrupted, looking at Lisa with childlike curiosity. "Don't you remember? When Uncle Daniel came, You talked to him. You were whispering, but I heard you say you were scared. Amanda felt as if she had been slapped. You were talking. Lisa, you were awake when Daniel came to get Tyler. Lisa's face was now nearly purple. Tears began to form in her eyes, and she looked desperately at Daniel, as if begging for help. Amanda? Daniel finally found his voice. Can we talk about this later? Tyler doesn't need to hear. Tyler doesn't need to hear what? Amanda shot back. The truth about what happened this morning? Why would that be a problem? Tyler was looking between the three adults with an expression that was increasingly confused and slightly frightened. Did I do something wrong? Was I not supposed to tell? No, sweetheart. Amanda knelt down to Tyler's level, forcing herself to keep her voice gentle. You didn't do anything wrong. In fact, how about you go over there with the other kids? They're handing out hot chocolate and cookies. Tyler hesitated for a moment, clearly sensing something important was happening, but the promise of hot chocolate was irresistible for a child who had just gone through a traumatic experience. He ran toward the group of children, leaving three adults in a silence that seemed to carry the weight of years of unspoken secrets. Amanda rose slowly, her eyes fixed on Daniel and Lisa. Now, she said, her voice low but filled with determination. Someone is going to tell me exactly what happened. Lisa began to cry silently, tears running down her mud-streaked face. Amanda, the truth. Lisa, Amanda interrupted. The whole truth. Daniel ran a hand through his wet hair, leaving streaks of mud across his forehead. Amanda, maybe this isn't the time for this. We've all been through trauma. We're exhausted. Enough, Amanda exploded, her voice echoing through the community center and making several people turn to look. She quickly lowered her tone, but her fury was palpable. Enough excuses, enough evasions. My husband disappeared from our tent in the middle of the night. My nephew was found by that same husband before anyone even knew he was missing. And now I find out you two were talking in the middle of the night, during the worst storm of the year. She looked directly into Daniel's eyes. What were you doing together? The question hung in the air like a guillotine about to fall. Daniel opened his mouth several times, but seemed unable to form words. Lisa sobbed quietly, her hands trembling as she tried to wipe away the endless tears. It was by chance. Daniel finally managed to left our tent because I couldn't sleep with the storm. I was walking, trying to think, when I heard Tyler crying. Amanda asked. Tyler said you came into his tent, not that you found him crying somewhere. Daniel swallowed hard. He was crying inside the tent. Lisa was trying to calm him down. And then you decided to take him away. In the middle of a dangerous storm. Without waking me. Without talking to anyone. Amanda shook her head. Daniel, that makes no sense at all. He was scared, Lisa said suddenly, her voice breaking through sobs. Tyler was very scared of the storm. He wanted to be with Daniel. He wanted to be with Daniel. Amanda repeated. Why, you're his mother. Lisa, if he was scared, naturally he would want to be with you. Lisa looked at Daniel, and Amanda saw something pass between them. A look of understanding, of complicity, that made her feel like an intruder in an intimate conversation. Tyler has always felt safe with Daniel, Lisa murmured. Since he was little, Daniel has a special way with him. A special way, Amanda repeated slowly. And what way would that be? Another heavy silence. Amanda could hear the conversations of other survivors in the background, the crackle of radios with weather updates, the sound of rescue helicopters flying overhead. But everything felt distant and irrelevant compared to the drama unfolding right there. Lisa, Amanda said softly, how long has Tyler preferred to be with Daniel when he's scared? I don't know. A few years? Maybe. A few years. Amanda nodded. And when exactly did that start? Lisa looked desperately at Daniel again, but he was staring at the ground, as if willing it to open and swallow him whole. Amanda, please, Lisa begged. Can't we do this somewhere else? Tyler might hear. Other people might hear. So there is something to be heard. Amanda questioned, something that would be a problem if other people knew. The question was like a direct stab. Lisa grew even paler, and her tears intensified. Please, she whispered, not here. Amanda looked around the community center. Tyler was on the other side of the room, apparently distracted by other survivors telling stories about the landslide. But there were other families nearby, and any more intense conversation would certainly draw attention. Fine, Amanda said finally. Let's go outside. They walked out to the small wooden deck behind the community center. The rain had stopped, but the air was still heavy with moisture and the smell of wet earth. On the horizon, Amanda could see the scar the landslide had left on the mountain, an open wound on the landscape that would take years to heal. Now, she said, crossing her arms. No interruptions, no excuses. I want to know exactly what's going on. Daniel took a deep breath, like a man preparing for confession. Amanda, you need to understand that we never wanted to hurt you. Hurt me. The word hit Amanda like lightning. Daniel, what kind of thing could hurt me? He didn't answer immediately, and the silence was more revealing than any words could have been. Oh my God, Amanda murmured, feeling her legs grow weak. Oh my God, it can't be, Amanda, Lisa began. No, Amanda cut her off, her mind racing to connect dots she had never considered before. No, this is crazy. You can't be suggesting that Tyler. She couldn't finish the sentence. The possibility was too terrible to speak aloud. "Tyler is my nephew," she said firmly. "My sister's son with that jerk Marcus who left her when she was pregnant." Lisa and Daniel exchanged another look, and Amanda felt as if she were watching two people communicate in a secret language she couldn't understand. "Marcus," Amanda said slowly. "Tyler is Marcus's son, right? Right?" The silence that followed was the answer Amanda didn't want to hear. "Lisa?" Her voice was now only a whisper. "Tyler is Marcus's son." More tears ran down Lisa's face. "Amanda, I answer the question." Amanda exploded. "It's a simple question. Is Tyler Marcus's son or not?" "No," Lisa whispered, so low Amanda almost didn't hear. The world stopped. Amanda felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Her legs gave out, and she leaned against the deck railing, struggling to breathe. "No," she repeated. "No. You said Marcus was the father. You said he left you when he found out about the pregnancy. You said—" "I lied," Lisa sobbed. "Marcus never knew about the pregnancy because we never slept together during that time. I lied to protect all of us." Amanda looked at Daniel, who now had his face buried in his hands. "And who is the father?" "Lisa, if it's not Marcus, who is it?" But she already knew the answer. She had known before even asking the question. The way Daniel had risked everything to save Tyler. The obvious connection between them that she had been too blind to see. The way Tyler felt safer with Daniel than with anyone else. "Daniel," she said, her own voice sounding distant to her ears. "Daniel is Tyler's father." It wasn't a question. It was a terrible, irrefutable statement. Daniel finally lifted his face, and Amanda saw tears in his eyes. Tears of relief, guilt, and fear mixed together. "Amanda," he whispered, "I'm so sorry. God, I'm so sorry." The confession hit Amanda like an emotional avalanche. 9 years. For 9 years, she had lived a lie. For 9 years, she had bonded with a child who was her stepchild without knowing it. For 9 years, her husband and her sister had shared a secret that completely defined their lives, while she had been kept in the dark like a useful fool. "How?" she asked, her voice coming out strange and distorted. "How did this happen?" Daniel and Lisa looked at each other again, and Amanda saw years of shared secrets, whispered conversations, complicity that excluded her completely. "Tell me," she said more firmly. "Tell me everything. From the beginning." And so, there on the wet wooden deck, as the sun began to rise over a devastated landscape, Amanda Sterling began to discover that her entire life had been built on a lie that was about to destroy everything she had ever believed in. If you are feeling the same tension and shock as Amanda, leave a comment about what you would do in her place. Do you think some lies can be forgiven, or are there secrets that forever destroy trust? And don't forget to like this video, because what comes next will reveal how this family betrayal began. And you won't believe the sordid details Daniel and Lisa are about to confess. The community center's wooden deck had become the stage for the greatest drama of Amanda Sterling's life. Around them, the morning was beginning to brighten, revealing the full extent of the devastation caused by the landslide. Centuries-old trees lay like fallen giants, their roots exposed to the sky like skeletal fingers. The scar on the mountain was an open wound that would bleed for decades. But all that physical destruction paled in comparison to the emotional devastation unfolding right there, in that small space between three people who had shared a family for nearly a decade. Without Amanda knowing, it had all been an elaborate lie. Daniel sat on a wooden bench, his head in his hands, his shoulders trembling slightly. Lisa had stopped crying, but her eyes were red and swollen, and she kept her arms crossed as if trying to protect herself from a cold that came from within. And Tyler, blissfully unaware of the emotional hurricane about to devastate his little family, was still inside playing with the other surviving children. "Start talking," Amanda said, her voice eerily calm. She had passed the stage of explosive anger and reached something much colder and more dangerous, an iron determination to uncover the whole truth, no matter how painful or devastating it might be. Daniel slowly lifted his head. His brown eyes, which she had always compared to the hot chocolate they drank on cold Seattle mornings, now looked like those of a stranger full of guilt, regret, and a deep sadness she had never seen before. "It was in March of 2016 he began, his voice hoarse and hesitant. "You were traveling to that digital marketing conference in Chicago? Remember, it was your first big opportunity at the company. You were so excited." Amanda remembered perfectly. It had been a pivotal moment in her career, a chance to prove her worth to the company executives. She had been away for a full 2 weeks, attending workshops, networking events, and strategic meetings. At the time, she had felt guilty about leaving Daniel alone for so long, but he had insisted she go, saying it was important for their future. Now she wondered if he had insisted for other reasons. "I remember," she said coldly. "Go on." Lisa was going through a very rough time with Marcus, Daniel continued, avoiding Amanda's gaze. "You two had fought over that loan she had asked for, and she didn't want to bother you during the conference." Amanda remembered that too. Lisa had asked to borrow $500 to pay some overdue bills, and Amanda had been irritated because it was the third time that year her sister needed financial help. They had had a heated argument before the trip, with Lisa accusing Amanda of being judgmental, and Amanda accusing Lisa of being irresponsible. "So she called you," Amanda observed. The first night you were away, Daniel confirmed. It was almost midnight. She was crying so hard she could barely speak. She said Marcus had broken up with her by text, that he had found someone else. Lisa finally found her voice, though it came out shaky and full of pain. I was destroyed. Amanda, Marcus and I had been together for almost 2 years. I really thought we were going to get married, have kids. And then, out of nowhere, he sends me a message saying he'd fallen in love with a coworker. And you went to comfort her, Amanda said to Daniel, her voice dripping with a bitterness she hadn't known she possessed. I just wanted to help, Daniel murmured. Lisa is your sister. She's family. I felt responsible for taking care of her while you were away. Responsible. Amanda repeated the word like it was poison. Interesting choice of words. Lisa took a deep breath, clearly bracing herself for the hardest part of the confession. I had been drinking, Amanda, a lot. When Daniel got home, I was on the living room couch, drunk and hysterical. I was feeling rejected, ugly, undesired, and Daniel was so kind, so caring. Amanda felt her stomach churn. She could picture the scene, Lisa vulnerable and drunk. Daniel trying to be the attentive brother-in-law, consoling her in her sister's absence. It was a perfect recipe for disaster. Did you sleep together that night? Amanda asked directly, without beating around the bush. The silence was deafening. Daniel looked at the floor, and Lisa closed her eyes as if trying to block out the memory. Yes, Lisa finally whispered. Once, Amanda pressed. Another silence. How many times, Lisa? 3. Daniel answered for her, his voice barely audible. 3 nights in a row. The 3 nights you were away at the first conferences. Amanda felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. It hadn't been just a one-night drunken mistake, a moment of weakness that could be explained or forgiven. It had been a conscious choice, repeated over 3 consecutive days, a deliberate, sustained betrayal. 3 nights, she repeated, letting the weight of the words hang in the air. 3 consecutive nights. You decided to betray my trust. It wasn't a decision, Lisa said desperately. At least not in the sense that we sat down and planned it. It was like we were lost. Amanda? I was shattered by the breakup. Daniel was feeling lonely with you traveling. Lonely. Amanda exploded. Daniel, you were lonely after a week without me. Lonely enough to sleep with my sister. Daniel finally lifted his eyes to meet hers, and Amanda saw something that made her even angrier, not just guilt, but a spark of defensiveness. It wasn't just about loneliness, he admitted. Lisa was vulnerable, needing comfort, and I felt needed. I felt like I was doing something important, taking care of someone who really needed me. The brutal honesty of the confession was like a stab. Amanda realized that Daniel wasn't just admitting the betrayal, he was admitting that he had found in Lisa something he wasn't finding in their marriage. And then, she asked, her voice dangerously calm, what happened when I got back from the trip? We stopped, Daniel said quickly. As soon as you returned, we stopped completely. We knew it was wrong. We knew it had been a terrible mistake. But you didn't tell me. How could we? Lisa asked, tears returning to her eyes. How could I look at you and say I had betrayed your trust in the worst possible way? The same way you're telling me now? Amanda shot back with words, Lisa, with the truth. Lisa lowered her head. We agreed to pretend it had never happened. Daniel went back to you. I started seeing other people. We tried to move on. And when did you discover the pregnancy? Amanda asked. 6 weeks later. Lisa replied. At first I didn't make the connection. My cycles had always been irregular, and I was so depressed about the breakup that I wasn't paying attention. But when did you make the connection? Lisa looked at Daniel, and Amanda saw years of silent communication between them and intimacy that excluded her completely, and had existed right under her nose for nearly a decade. I panicked, Lisa admitted. I called Daniel immediately. And what did you decide? We decided that Marcus could be the father, Daniel said. Lisa had slept with him a few times in the weeks before our encounter. The dates were close enough to create reasonable doubt. Reasonable doubt? Amanda repeated, as if it were a criminal case. Amanda, you need to understand. Daniel leaned toward her. We were terrified. You had just gotten that promotion. We were planning to buy our first house. Talking about having children. How could we destroy all of that? So you decided to deceive me instead. We decided to protect you, Lisa corrected, and protect the baby. If we told the truth, our family would be destroyed. Tyler would grow up knowing he was conceived in betrayal. You would lose your sister and your husband at once. That wasn't your decision to make, Amanda said with a coldness that made them both recoil. That decision was mine. You stole from me the right to choose how to deal with the betrayal. Another heavy silence settled among them. Inside the community center, Amanda could hear Tyler laughing at something a sound innocent and pure that grotesquely contrasted with the sordid conversation happening outside. Did you do a paternity test? Amanda asked. No, Daniel answered quickly. It was too risky, and Marcus was out of the country during the last months of Lisa's pregnancy, so there was no pressure for him to be present. Convenient, Amanda observed sarcastically. When Tyler was born, he didn't look much like any of us, Lisa continued. Babies rarely look like anyone specific in the first months, so it was easy to maintain the lie. When did you start to suspect Daniel was really the father? Lisa looked at Tyler through the window. where he was putting together a puzzle with another child. When he turned 2, it started to become clear. The shape of the face, the eye color, certain gestures. But when he turned 3, it became undeniable. Amanda followed her sister's gaze and observed Tyler for the first time with complete clarity. It was frightening how blind she had been for so many years. The jawline was identical to Daniel's. The way he furrowed his brows when concentrating was an exact copy. Even the way he gestured with his hands echoed Daniel's movements. "How did I never notice?" she murmured, more to herself than to them. "Because you weren't looking," Daniel said softly, "and because we did everything to make sure you wouldn't see." "What do you mean?" "We limited the time Tyler spent with us when he was little," Lisa explained. "I always found excuses to cancel visits when I thought the similarities were becoming too obvious. And when he did stay with us, Daniel forced himself to keep his distance. But that changed," Amanda observed. "In recent years, Tyler started coming to our house more." Daniel nodded sadly. "As he grew older, it became harder to keep my distance. He's my son, Amanda. Every paternal instinct in me screamed to be present in his life. And you, Lisa, how did you feel seeing Daniel develop a relationship with Tyler?" Lisa hesitated before answering. It was complicated. Part of me was relieved that Tyler had a positive father figure, but another part felt guilty and afraid he'd start calling Daniel dad, or that you would find out. "Did you talk about him? Make decisions about Tyler's upbringing together?" "Sometimes," Daniel admitted. "When Lisa was going through financial difficulties, I insisted on helping. When Tyler needed something for school, I bought it. When he had behavioral problems." "You acted like his father," Amanda completed. "Yes," Daniel said simply. "I acted like his father because I am his father." The brutal simplicity of the statement hit Amanda like a bullet. For 9 years, Daniel had been Tyler's father in secret, making parental decisions, providing emotional and financial support, developing bonds that transcended the official uncle-nephew relationship. "And me?" Amanda asked, her voice trembling for the first time. "Where did I fit into all of this? You two sharing secrets about Tyler? Making decisions about him, building a relationship that excluded me completely." "We never wanted to exclude you," Lisa said desperately. "You've always been important in Tyler's life. He loves you, Amanda, as an aunt," Amanda said bitterly. "He loves me as an aunt, not knowing that I'm technically his stepmother." The word stepmother sounded strange to everyone. Tyler was technically Amanda's nephew through Lisa, but also her stepson through Daniel. The complexity of the family situation created by the lie was almost impossible to process. "Amanda?" Daniel leaned toward her. "I know I have no right to ask this after everything we've done, but Tyler can't be hurt by our mistakes. He's innocent in all of this." "Do you think I would hurt a child?" Amanda asked, genuinely offended by the suggestion. "No, that's not it," Daniel hurried to clarify. "But he loves you. Your Aunt Amanda, the one who takes him to the movies on weekends, who helps with his homework, who makes those special cookies he loves. He can't lose that because of our mistakes." Amanda looked at Tyler through the window again. The boy was laughing, showing the gap between his front teeth where he had lost a tooth a few weeks earlier. She clearly remembered helping convince him that the tooth fairy was real, putting money under his pillow when he slept at her house. How many moments like that had she shared with Tyler, not knowing she was his stepmother? How many times had she cared for him, loved him, worried about him, thinking she was just a loving aunt, when in reality she was fulfilling an unacknowledged parental role? "He has the right to know the truth," she said finally. "Not now," Lisa begged. "He's only 9. Amanda, how would you explain something so complicated to a child? How would you tell him that everything he believed about his family was a lie?" "The same way you should have explained it to me 9 years ago," Amanda replied coldly, with honesty. "But he's just a child," Daniel argued. "The emotional consequences of such a revelation could be devastating for him, and the emotional consequences for me." Amanda asked, "Do you think discovering that I lived a lie for 9 years isn't devastating? Do you think knowing that my husband has a child whom I helped raise without knowing isn't traumatic?" She stood up, walking to the deck railing and looking at the wounded mountain. "You two made the decision to deceive me, to protect yourselves. You didn't protect me, you protected yourselves from the consequences of your actions." "That's not true," Lisa protested. "We wanted to protect everyone, you, Tyler, our family." "Our family." Amanda turned to face her sister. "Lisa, what family?" "The family where my husband has a child with my sister. The family built on lies and betrayal. That family?" A new silence settled, heavier than all the previous ones. Amanda could feel the weight of 9 years of deception, 9 years of moments that now had to be reinterpreted, 9 years of a life she discovered was a carefully constructed illusion. "What do you want from me now?" she finally asked. "Do you want me to pretend none of this happened? To keep being the happy wife and the loving aunt while you two go on sharing your secret? We want you to forgive us," Daniel said simply, "and for us to find a way to keep being a family." "Family." Amanda laughed, but it was a bitter, humorless sound. "Daniel, you have a child with my sister, a child I helped raise without knowing he was my stepson. Lisa, you lied to me for 9 years about your son's paternity. How exactly does that work in a family?" "We don't know," Daniel admitted. But we know we love you. We know we love Tyler, and we know we can't undo what we did. We can only try to be better from now on." Amanda looked at the man she had married, with whom she had dreamed of having children, with whom she had planned to grow old, and she realized that perhaps she had never truly known him. "Do you two want more children?" she asked suddenly. "Daniel, do you want me to have your children, knowing you already have a child you can barely acknowledge publicly?" The question hit Daniel like a bomb. He opened his mouth several times, but no sound came out. "That's what I thought," Amanda said. "You destroyed my life to protect your secret family, and now you want me to help keep that lie." She began to walk away, but Daniel stood quickly and grabbed her arm. "Amanda, please, it can't end like this." She looked at his hand on her arm, the same hand that had touched her sister, the same hand that had caressed the child they had raised together in secret. Then she looked into his desperate eyes. "It's not ending, Daniel," she said with terrible calm. "It's just beginning, because now I need to decide whether I can live knowing my entire life was a lie, whether I can look at Tyler without seeing your betrayal, and whether I can forgive something you hid from me for 9 years. She pulled free of his grip, and frankly at this moment, I don't know if that's possible. And then she walked away, leaving Daniel and Lisa alone with the weight of 9 years of lies and the terrible certainty that some confessions come too late to save what has already been irreparably destroyed. If you think Amanda is right to be furious, or if you believe Daniel and Lisa had justifiable reasons to keep the secret, leave it in the comments. And if you want to find out whether this family has any chance of surviving this devastating revelation, don't forget to like this video, because what comes next will show the impossible decisions Amanda needs to make, and the impact all of this will have on little Tyler, who still doesn't know his life is about to change forever. 3 days had passed since the devastating revelation at the Cascade Falls Community Center. The roads had been partially cleared by emergency crews, and most of the landslide survivors had already returned to their homes, their lives, their normal routines. But Amanda Sterling remained at the small Mountain View Lodge motel, where the state had temporarily accommodated the families most affected by the tragedy, completely unable to make any decision about what to do next. She was sitting on the bed in room 237, a modest accommodation with faux wood-paneled walls, and a heater that made strange noises at night. Through the fogged-up window, Amanda watched Tyler play in the motel's small park with other children who were also temporarily staying there. Daniel was outside too, pushing Tyler on the rusted swing and laughing at the boy's jokes with a naturalness that now seemed obscene to Amanda. The scene should have been perfectly normal, a middle-aged man playing with a child on a sunny afternoon, enjoying a few light moments after a natural tragedy. But for Amanda, watching that interaction was like watching a movie about her own life where the main actors had been swapped without her knowledge. Except that officially, publicly, Daniel and Tyler were not father and son. They were only uncle and nephew. A lie sustained by 9 years of complicity among adults who had decided she didn't deserve the truth. A soft knock at the door interrupted her bitter thoughts. Amanda instinctively knew it was Lisa. Her sister had tried to talk to her at least a dozen times over the last 3 days, always knocking with that characteristic hesitation, always speaking through the door in a small guilt-ridden voice. But Amanda wasn't ready for more explanations, more apologies, more attempts to justify the unjustifiable. "Amanda," Lisa's voice sounded from the other side of the door, heavy with exhaustion that mirrored Amanda's own emotional fatigue. "Please, can we talk? It's about Tyler." Amanda closed her eyes. Over the past 3 days, she had managed to avoid serious conversations simply by refusing to open the door or by leaving whenever Lisa or Daniel approached. But mentioning Tyler changed everything. Regardless of what had happened among the adults, Tyler was an innocent child who did not deserve to be harmed by his parents' sins. "There's nothing more to talk about," Amanda replied, but her voice sounded tired rather than furious. "There is," Lisa insisted. "About what we're going to tell Tyler. About how we're going to handle this from now on. He's already asking why you don't talk to him like before." Amanda felt a stab of pain in her chest. Tyler had tried to talk to her several times in recent days, always with that innocent confusion of a child who can't understand why the adults around him suddenly became strange and distant. She had been polite but cold, unable to act naturally with him, knowing what she now knew. How could a person look at a child she had helped raise, had taken to the dentist, had comforted during nightmares, knowing he was technically her stepchild, but that she had been deceived about it for 9 years? Reluctantly, Amanda got up and opened the door. Lisa looked terrible, puffy, red eyes, disheveled hair, wrinkled clothes that seemed to be the same ones from the last 3 days. She looked like someone who hadn't slept properly or eaten adequately, consumed by guilt and fear. 5 minutes, Amanda said curtly, letting her sister into the small, impersonal room. Lisa sat in the room's only chair, a faded brown velvet armchair that had seen better days. Amanda returned to the bed, keeping as much physical distance from her sister as possible. For a few moments they were silent, watching through the window as Daniel pushed Tyler on the swing with the dedication of a father, trying to make up for 9 years of secret fatherhood. "He's a good father," Lisa said softly, her voice laden with deep sadness. "He's not even officially a father," Amanda replied sharply, "at least not to Tyler. Not on paper, not legally, not publicly, but he wants to be. He always has. Amanda turned to face her sister directly. And you, Lisa. What have you always wanted? Did you want Daniel to be Tyler's father? Or did you want to keep the secret forever? Lisa hesitated, clearly struggling with the answer. It was complicated. Part of me wanted Tyler to know his real father, but another part was terrified of the consequences. Consequences for whom? For Tyler or for you? For all of us, Lisa replied defensively. Amanda, you don't understand how hard it was to keep this secret. How many nights I lay awake wondering if I was doing the right thing. How many times I almost told the truth. But you never did, Amanda interrupted. In 9 years, you never found the courage to be honest with me. Because I was afraid of losing everything, Lisa admitted, tears returning to her eyes. Afraid of losing you? Afraid that Daniel would choose Tyler over you? Afraid our family would completely disintegrate? Amanda studied her sister's face, searching for signs of genuine sincerity versus manipulative self-pity. And now, what changed that finally made you tell the truth? Tyler almost died, Lisa said simply. When I saw Daniel risking everything to save him, I saw the naked truth that he is Tyler's father, that he always has been, and that he could no longer pretend otherwise. And you thought I wouldn't notice? We hoped you wouldn't connect the dots immediately, Lisa admitted, embarrassed. We thought maybe we could find a way to tell you gradually, to prepare you ... prepare. Amanda laughed bitterly. Lisa, there is no way to prepare someone to discover that their entire life was a lie. There's no gentle way to reveal that you were deceived for 9 years. Lisa lowered her head, unable to argue against the brutal truth of Amanda's statement. What does Tyler know? Amanda asked. Nothing yet. He thinks you're just nervous because of the landslide, but he's starting to notice that something has changed between us. Amanda looked out the window again. Tyler had gotten off the swing and was now showing Daniel something he had found on the ground, probably an interesting rock or an insect. The way Daniel crouched to be at Tyler's level, the complete attention he gave to what the boy was saying, the protective hand he kept on his shoulder, these were the gestures of a father, not an uncle. He has the right to know, Amanda said finally. He does, Lisa agreed. But when how? He's only 9. Amanda, how do we explain that his entire life has been based on a lie? The same way you're explaining it to me now, Amanda replied. With the truth, as painful as it is. But the consequences ... The consequences are already happening, Amanda cut in. Tyler is already confused about why the adults in his life are acting strange. It's better to give him the truth than to let him invent his own theories about what's going on. Lisa fell silent for a long moment, clearly processing the implications. And after we tell him, what happens then? It was the question Amanda had avoided asking herself for the past 3 days. What would really happen after? How could a family continue to exist after such a devastating revelation? I don't know, Amanda admitted. Honestly, Lisa, I have no idea how we navigate this. Are you going to divorce Daniel? The question hung in the air like a sword of Damocles. Amanda had avoided thinking concretely about divorce, but now that the word had been spoken, she could no longer ignore the possibility. Do you think our marriage can survive this? Amanda asked in return. You love each other, Lisa said hesitantly. Do we? Amanda questioned. Lisa, how can I be sure I love someone who is capable of deceiving me for 9 years? How can I trust any feeling I have for him, knowing our entire relationship was built on a fundamental lie? Lisa had no answer to that. And Tyler. Amanda continued. If I divorced Daniel, what would happen to Tyler? Technically, he's my stepson, but our relationship has always been defined as aunt and nephew. If Daniel and I divorced, would I lose any legal or official right to see him? Daniel would never allow that, Lisa said quickly. He knows how much Tyler loves you, but legally, Lisa, if there's no official documentation of Daniel's paternity, if Tyler is still officially your child, born out of wedlock, what would my legal standing be in his life after a divorce? The legal complexity of the situation began to become clear to both of them. Years of lies had created a tangle of undocumented relationships that would be a nightmare for any family lawyer to unravel. Maybe you can work it out, Lisa suggested weakly. Couples therapy, time to process. Lisa, your son is the result of my husband's betrayal. With my sister, that's not something resolved with a few therapy sessions. Amanda stood and walked to the window, watching Daniel and Tyler, who were now investigating something near the park's bushes. You destroyed my ability to trust either of you. How do I know there aren't more secrets? How do I know this is the only lie you kept? It's the only one, Lisa said desperately. Amanda, I swear it's the only one. Your oaths mean nothing to me now. Amanda replied coldly. You swore to be a loyal sister. You swore never to hurt me intentionally. You swore many things over the years, and they all proved empty. Lisa began to cry again, a silent sob of pure defeat. What do you want me to do? How can I fix this? Amanda turned to face her sister. You can't. This can't be fixed. Lisa, 9 years of lies can't be undone with apologies and tears. So what do we do? You tell Tyler the truth, Amanda said with determination. Today, now, you and Daniel sit down with him and explain that Daniel is his biological father, that you lied about it, and that things are going to be different from now on. And you." Amanda looked out the window once more. Tyler had found a butterfly and was trying to convince Daniel to catch it without hurting it. The scene was painfully sweet and normal, a moment of pure innocence amid the adult's emotional chaos. "I'm leaving," she said simply. "Leaving." Lisa stood up, alarmed. "Where? Far away? I need time to process this, to decide what I want to do with my life. I can't do that here, surrounded by you two and all the lies." "But Tyler? Tyler has his father now," Amanda said, her voice cracking slightly for the first time. "He has the father he's always had, but who can now acknowledge him publicly. He doesn't need the aunt who was deceived about being his stepmother." "Amanda, no," Lisa pleaded. "Tyler loves you. Regardless of all this, he genuinely loves you, and I love him," Amanda admitted, tears finally beginning to fall. "But how can I look at him without seeing your betrayal? How can I hug him without remembering that I'm an idiot who was deceived for 9 years?" Lisa stepped closer, trying to touch Amanda's arm, but she pulled away. "Please," Lisa whispered. "Don't abandon Tyler because of our mistakes." "I'm not abandoning Tyler," Amanda replied. "I'm removing myself from a situation that is toxic for all of us. Tyler deserves to grow up without the tension of adults who can't be in the same room without drama." A knock at the door interrupted the conversation. Both women turned, and through the glass door, they could see Daniel standing outside with Tyler. "Aunt Amanda," Tyler shouted, apparently unaware of the tension, "I found a beautiful butterfly. Do you want to see it?" Amanda closed her eyes, fighting the pain in her chest. Tyler's cheerful, innocent voice was a cruel reminder of everything she was losing, not just a marriage, but a child she had helped raise without knowing it. "Amanda," Daniel said through the door, his voice cautious, "Tyler wants to show you something, and we need to talk." Amanda looked at Lisa, who nodded sadly. It was time. Time to tell Tyler. Time to face the consequences. Time to begin the painful process of undoing 9 years of carefully constructed lies. She opened the door, and Tyler immediately ran to hug her. For a moment, Amanda allowed herself to feel the child's pure, unconditional love, knowing it might be one of the last times she would experience that simplicity. "Hi, sweetheart," she said, her voice forcibly normal. "What butterfly did you find?" But when she lifted her eyes to meet Daniel's, she saw that he knew. He knew decisions were being made, that irreversible changes were in motion, and that the family they had built on lies was about to collapse once and for all. If you're rooting for Amanda to give this family a chance to rebuild, or if you think she's right to want to step away, leave it in the comments. Do you think Tyler will be able to understand and forgive when he learns the truth? And don't forget to like this video, because what comes next is the hardest conversation this family has ever had, and the moment when Tyler will discover that everything he thought about his life was wrong. The sun was setting over the Cascade Mountains when Amanda Sterling made the decision that would forever change the life of a 9-year-old child. She, Daniel, Lisa, and Tyler were sitting in a circle on the small deck of the community center, the same place where, just a few hours earlier, 9-year-old secrets had finally been revealed among the adults. Tyler was still holding the butterfly he had found, now carefully placed in a small cardboard box with holes that Daniel had improvised. The boy was excited, talking non-stop about how he wanted to research butterflies when he got home, completely unaware that the 3 adults around him were about to shatter everything he believed about his family. "Tyler," Amanda began, her voice trembling slightly, "we need to talk to you about something very important." The serious tone made Tyler stop fiddling with the box and look at the 3 adults with that sharp perception some children have when they sense something serious is happening. "Am I in trouble?" he asked, his big brown eyes so much like Daniel's that Amanda wondered how she had been blind for so long, darting nervously between the adults' faces. "No, sweetheart," Lisa said softly, but her voice was choked. "You didn't do anything wrong. In fact, we adults are the ones who did something wrong, and now we need to tell you the truth." Tyler frowned, a gesture that was an exact copy of Daniel's when he was confused. "What kind of wrong thing?" Daniel leaned forward, his large hands resting on his knees. Amanda could see that he was struggling to find the right words, to figure out how to explain 9 years of lies to a child who trusted them implicitly. "Tyler," Daniel began, his voice hoarse with emotion, "you know how I'm your uncle, married to Aunt Amanda, and your mom is Aunt Amanda's sister." "Of course," Tyler replied, still confused about where the conversation was going. "Well, that part about me being your uncle isn't exactly true." Tyler blinked several times, processing the words. "What do you mean it's not true? Aren't you married to Aunt Amanda?" "I am married to Aunt Amanda," Daniel confirmed quickly. "But the part about me being only your uncle, Tyler, I'm your father." The silence that followed was absolute. Tyler looked at Daniel, then at Lisa, then at Amanda, as if expecting someone to start laughing and say it was just a joke. When no one laughed, when all the faces remained serious and full of pain, reality began to set in. "My dad," Tyler repeated, his voice small and confused. But my dad is Marcus." "You said my dad was Marcus? Mom, you said he left before I was born." Lisa began to cry silently. "I lied, Tyler. Marcus was never your father. Daniel has always been your true father." Tyler turned to Daniel, his eyes filling with tears. "You're my dad." "Really?" "Yes," Daniel whispered. "I've always been your dad, Tyler, since the day you were born." "But why?" Tyler began, then stopped, clearly struggling to understand. "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you lie?" It was the question Amanda had asked, the question any rational person would ask. How do you explain to a child that the adults they trust built their entire life on a lie? "Because we did something very wrong," Lisa said, trying to control her tears. "When you weren't born yet, Daniel and I, we did something that hurt Aunt Amanda very much, and we were afraid to tell the truth." Tyler looked at Amanda, and she saw genuine confusion in his eyes. "Is Aunt Amanda hurt? Is that why she's been acting strange with me since the landslide?" The innocence of the question was like a stab to Amanda's heart. Tyler had noticed her coldness, but his child's mind had tried to find explanations that made sense in his world. "Yes, sweetheart," Amanda said gently. "I'm hurt because I found out that you had been lying to me for a long time. But will you be okay?" Tyler asked with a child's genuine concern. "Will you like me again?" The question broke Amanda's heart into pieces. "Tyler, I never stopped liking you. This isn't about you. It's about the adults who made bad decisions." Tyler was silent for a long moment, clearly trying to process information that was far too complex for his age. When he spoke again, his voice was filled with a sadness no child should have to feel. "So Uncle Daniel is really my daddy?" "Yes," Daniel confirmed, tears running down his face. "I've always wanted to be able to call you my son, Tyler. I always wanted you to know. But why couldn't you tell me before?" Daniel looked at Lisa, then at Amanda, clearly struggling with how much of the sordid truth a 9-year-old could understand. "Because adults sometimes do complicated, wrong things," he said finally. "And when we did those wrong things, we were afraid of the consequences." Tyler nodded slowly, as if trying to accept an explanation he clearly didn't fully understand. "And now? What happens now that I know?" It was the question none of the adults knew how to answer. What would really happen now? How does a family reorganize after such a fundamental revelation? "Now we try to figure out how to be a real family," Lisa said hesitantly. "All of us?" Tyler asked, looking specifically at Amanda. "Aunt Amanda too?" Amanda felt as if she were being torn apart inside. The hope in Tyler's eyes was almost unbearable, especially knowing she was about to crush it. "Tyler," she said gently, "I need to go away for a while." "Go away?" Tyler stood up, alarmed. "Where? For how long?" "I don't know, sweetheart. I need time to think about all this." "But will you come back?" Tyler asked, his voice jumping an octave with panic. "You will come back, won't you?" Amanda looked at Daniel, who was watching the interaction with an expression of absolute despair. She could see that he wanted to intervene, wanted to promise Tyler that everything would be okay, but he knew he had no right to make promises on her behalf. "I don't know," Amanda admitted, hating herself for causing pain to an innocent child. "I really don't know." Tyler began to cry, not the dramatic crying of a child throwing a tantrum, but the devastated crying of someone who was losing safety and stability. "Don't go," he shouted, running to Amanda and clinging to her. "Please, Aunt Amanda, don't go away. I promise I'll be good. I promise I won't do anything wrong." The desperation in his voice broke Amanda's heart. She knelt to be at his level, holding his small face in her hands. "Tyler, listen to me," she said firmly. "This isn't about you being good or bad. You didn't do anything wrong. This is about decisions the adults made before you were even born. But I don't want you to go away," Tyler sobbed. "You're my favorite aunt. You make the best cookies. You take me to see cool movies. You help me with my homework." Each word was another stab. Amanda had been an integral part of Tyler's life for 9 years. Without knowing, she was fulfilling an almost parental role. Now, discovering the truth was forcing her to step away just when Tyler needed stability most. "Tyler," Daniel intervened gently, "Aunt Amanda needs time to process all this. That doesn't mean she doesn't love you. But what if she decides she doesn't want to be my aunt anymore?" Tyler asked, his tears intensifying. The question revealed a surprising understanding for a child his age. Tyler intuitively understood that the revelation about his paternity could change all the family relationships in ways he still couldn't fully grasp. Amanda looked at Lisa, who was watching the scene with a growing expression of horror. It was clear that Lisa hadn't anticipated how Tyler would react to the possibility of losing Amanda, or how that would affect her own relationship with her son. "Tyler," Amanda said carefully, "you need to understand that things are going to be different now. Daniel is your father, and that means the two of you will spend more time together. We'll have a different relationship, but I want you there too," Tyler insisted. "Why can't we all stay together?" It was a perfectly logical question from a child, but impossible to answer honestly. How to explain to Tyler that his existence was a constant reminder of the deepest betrayal Amanda had ever experienced? How to make a child understand that sometimes love isn't enough to overcome certain wounds? "Sometimes families change," Amanda said finally, "and when they change, people need time to figure out how to be happy in the new circumstances." "But I don't want our family to change," Tyler shouted. "I like our family the way it was." The innocent statement hit all the adults like a bomb. Tyler had been happy with the family he had known his whole life, a family based on lies, but one that had provided him love, stability, and security. The revelation of the truth, however necessary, was destroying the only family he had ever known. Daniel stood and knelt beside Amanda, placing a hand on Tyler's shoulder. "Buddy, I know this is scary. I know you don't understand why things have to change, but sometimes, when the truth comes out, people need time to figure out how to deal with it." "Is the truth bad?" Tyler asked, looking between Daniel and Amanda. "The truth isn't bad," Amanda replied, "but sometimes the way we arrive at the truth can hurt people." Tyler wiped his nose on his sleeve, trying to stop crying. "Are you going to get divorced, like Jake's parents at school?" The direct question caught everyone by surprise. Tyler had made the connection the adults were avoiding verbalizing, that learning about his paternity could result in the end of Amanda and Daniel's marriage. "We don't know," Amanda admitted. "We're still figuring out what's going to happen." Tyler was silent for a moment, processing this information. When he spoke again, his voice was filled with a forced maturity that broke everyone's heart. "If you get divorced, will I still be able to see Aunt Amanda?" The question revealed Tyler's central fear, that the revelation about his paternity could result in the loss of Amanda, who had been a constant, loving presence in his life. "That will depend on many things," Amanda said honestly. "But Tyler, regardless of what happens among the adults, you need to know that you are loved. You have always been loved, but by you too," Tyler pressed. Amanda looked into Tyler's brown eyes. She now knew were identical to Daniel's and saw all the vulnerability and fear of a child whose world had been turned upside down. "Yes," she whispered. "By me too." But even as she spoke the words, Amanda knew that love alone would not be enough to navigate the complexity of the situation that had been created. Loving Tyler didn't change the fact that every time she looked at him, she would be reminded of the betrayal that had defined her life for the past 9 years. Tyler approached and hugged her again, this time more calmly, as if trying to memorize the feeling of security that Amanda had always represented to him. "When are you leaving?" he asked, his voice muffled against her shoulder. "Tomorrow morning," Amanda replied, feeling her own tears begin to fall. "Can I give you something before you go?" Amanda nodded, not trusting her voice to answer verbally. Tyler pulled away and ran into the community center, returning a few minutes later with a crumpled drawing he had made during the days in the shelter. It was a child's drawing of 4 people holding hands, clearly him, Lisa, Daniel, and Amanda, in front of a house with a smiling sun in the sky. "It's our family," he explained, handing the paper to Amanda. "I drew it so you'd remember that we love you, even when you're far away." Amanda looked at the drawing and felt as if her heart were being crushed. In Tyler's innocent mind, they were still a family that could remain united despite the adults' revelations and complications. "It's beautiful, Tyler," she managed to say. "I'll always keep it, and will you think of us every day?" Amanda promised, and she knew it was true. No matter where she went, no matter what she decided about her future, she would think of Tyler every day for the rest of her life. Daniel approached slowly. "Tyler, how about you go play inside for a few minutes? The adults need to finish talking." Tyler hesitated, clearly reluctant to leave Amanda alone with the other adults, as if his presence could somehow prevent bad decisions from being made. "It'll be okay," Amanda assured him. "We'll talk before I leave tomorrow." When Tyler finally went into the community center, the 3 adults remained silent for a long moment. The sun had completely set, and the first stars began to appear in the clear sky, a stark contrast to the emotional storm they had faced in recent days. "He'll be okay," Lisa finally said, though her voice carried no conviction. Eventually, Daniel agreed. "Children are resilient. Don't do that," Amanda said suddenly. "Don't minimize the impact this will have on his life. Tyler just found out that everything he believed about his family was a lie. This will affect him for the rest of his life." "We know," Daniel replied. "But what else can we do besides try to be better from now on?" Amanda turned to face them both. "You can stop lying. To him, to me, to yourselves. You can accept that some actions have permanent consequences." "And what is the permanent consequence?" Lisa asked, though she seemed to fear the answer. "That our family the way it was is over," Amanda said with a finality that made them both recoil. "Tyler will have to grow up knowing he was conceived in betrayal. Daniel will have to live with the guilt of having destroyed our marriage. And you, Lisa, will have to accept that your decision to lie caused irreparable harm to innocent people." "And you?" Daniel asked. "What's your permanent consequence?" Amanda looked toward the mountains in the distance, where just a week ago she had been a happy wife on an innocent family camping trip. "My consequence is having to rebuild my entire life at 31, she said. "It's having to question every memory, every happy moment, every decision I made based on false information. It's having to learn to live knowing that the 2 people I trusted most in the world deceived me for 9 years. She stood, signaling that the conversation was over. "And it's having to accept that sometimes loving someone, like I love Tyler, isn't enough to overcome the damage that was done." "Amanda," Daniel stood as well, extending a hand toward her. "Please, it can't end like this. We have to find a way to what?" Amanda interrupted. "To pretend this never happened? To go back to normal as if 9 years of lies were just a misunderstanding? To find a way to be a family," Daniel finished desperately. Amanda looked at him, the man she had married, with whom she had dreamed of having children, with whom she had planned to grow old. And for the first time since the revelation, she felt something other than anger and pain. She felt a deep, permanent sadness for the loss of everything they could have been. "Daniel," she said softly, "we were never really a family. We were just people living a well-crafted lie, and you can't build a real future on a false foundation." With those words, Amanda walked into the community center, leaving Daniel and Lisa alone under the stars with the full weight of the consequences of their choices. Inside, she found Tyler asleep in one of the armchairs, still holding the box with the butterfly. Amanda quietly approached and watched his peaceful face in sleep, a face that bore features of Daniel she could no longer ignore. "Forgive me," she whispered to the sleeping boy. "Forgive me for not being strong enough to stay and help you navigate this." The next morning, when Tyler woke up, Amanda Sterling was already gone. She left a letter explaining that she needed time, that it wasn't his fault, and that she hoped one day he could understand. But Tyler was only 9 years old, and the only thing he truly understood was that the person he considered his favorite aunt had disappeared from his life at the exact moment he discovered his entire world had been a lie. Daniel officially claimed paternity of Tyler 3 weeks later, through a DNA test and legal documentation. Lisa finally told Tyler the whole story appropriate for his age, about how he had been conceived and why they had lied. Tyler began therapy to help him process the changes in his family life. But every night, before bed, Tyler looked at the drawing he had given Amanda, a copy of which he had made for himself, and wondered if she would ever come home. Daniel tried to explain that sometimes adults need time to heal wounds, but Tyler only understood that the person who had been a constant in his life had disappeared when he needed stability most. Amanda settled temporarily in Portland, Oregon, where a college friend helped her find a small apartment and freelance work. She kept her phone close, waiting for the courage to call Tyler, but she never managed to dial the number. How do you explain to a child you love that seeing him is too painful? How do you tell an innocent boy that his existence is a constant reminder of the worst betrayal you ever faced? 6 months after the landslide, Amanda finally filed for divorce. Not out of anger, the anger had passed, but out of a pragmatic recognition that some wounds are too deep to heal, some betrayals too great to forgive, and some lies too long to overcome. Daniel signed the papers without contest. He knew he had destroyed something precious and irreparable. Lisa tried to reach out several times, but Amanda never responded. The betrayal of a sister, Amanda discovered, hurt differently, deeper, more personal, more permanent. And Tyler grew up knowing he had been loved by 4 people, but that the adults' decisions had made it impossible for them all to be a family. He kept the family drawing he had given Amanda, and sometimes Daniel would find him staring at it with a sadness no child should carry. 1 year after the landslide, on a rainy autumn afternoon, Amanda's phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize, but when she answered, she heard a small, hesitant voice that made her heart stop. "Aunt Amanda?" "It's Tyler." Amanda held the phone with both hands, her tears beginning to fall immediately. "Hi, sweetheart. How did you get my number?" "I asked Dad," Tyler said, and Amanda noticed how natural the word Dad now sounded in his voice. "He said you were okay, but still sad. I wanted to know if you still think about me. Every day," Amanda whispered, her voice breaking. "Every day. Tyler, I miss you," he said simply, "and I wanted you to know that I understand now, that adults sometimes need time to fix broken things. But I also wanted you to know that I still love you, even if you can't be here." Amanda cried silently, holding the phone as if it were a lifeline. "I love you too, Tyler, more than you'll ever know. One day, when the broken things are fixed, can you come see me?" he asked with the cautious hope of a child who had learned that not all wishes are granted. Amanda looked out the window of her apartment in Portland, at a city that still didn't feel like home, at a life she was still trying to build on the wreckage of everything she had lost. "Maybe, sweetheart," she said softly. "Maybe one day." When they hung up, Amanda sat on the small couch in her apartment and looked at Tyler's drawing, the family of 4 holding hands that she had carried with her through all the chaos, all the changes, all the pain. It was a reminder that love, even when complicated by betrayal and deep wounds, doesn't simply disappear. Some families survive storms. Others discover they were built on foundations too weak to withstand the earthquakes of truth. But sometimes, in the years that follow, in the unexpected phone calls and the carefully kept drawings, possibilities of rebuilding arise, not of what was lost, but of something new, honest, and real. The landslide in the Cascade Mountains had lasted only a few hours, but the emotional avalanches that followed lasted years. And perhaps, Amanda thought as she carefully put away the drawing, this was only the beginning of a much longer story about how people find ways to love each other, even after everything falls apart. So, everyone, what did you think of this story? Do you think Amanda was too harsh, or that her reactions were completely justified? Do you believe Tyler and Amanda could have a relationship in the future, or are some wounds too deep to heal? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you want more emotional stories like this one. Sometimes life teaches us that not all endings are happy, but they all leave us with important lessons about love, forgiveness, and the consequences of our choices. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this emotional journey.